My name is Daniel Cruz, and I grew up in a quiet neighborhood in Quezon City. Life used to be simple. My father, Mr. Adrian Cruz, was a businessman who ran a construction company, and my mother, Mrs. Liza Cruz, was a high school teacher. I had a best friend named Sophia de la Vega. We met in kindergarten. She was kind, funny, and always knew how to cheer me up. We did everything together, played basketball, studied, even shared food during lunch breaks. People used to joke that we looked like siblings. But everything changed when I turned 16. That was the year my mother got sick. She had been hiding it for a long time, but the truth came out when she fainted during dinner one night. Dad rushed her to the hospital, and we found out she had a heart condition. For months, our house was filled with sadness. Dad became quiet, always working late. I tried to stay strong, but I cried almost every night. Sophia was the only one who stayed close. She came to our house after school, helped my mom cook, and even took care of me when Dad was away. Then, one rainy evening, my mother passed away. I remember Sophia holding my hand at the funeral. "You'll be okay," she said softly. "I'll always be here." She kept her promise. Even after graduation, she stayed around. She would visit my dad sometimes, bringing food and checking on him. I thought she was just being nice. After all, she was part of the family now. But a year later, something happened that shook my world. Dad started smiling again. He started dressing up more, going out on weekends, and buying flowers. I didn't think much of it until one Sunday afternoon when I saw him drop Sophia off at her house. I didn't think anything bad. Maybe he was just giving her a ride. But then I noticed how he looked at her, how she smiled back. It made my stomach twist. A few weeks later, Dad called me into the living room. "Son," he began, "I want to tell you something important." Sophia was sitting beside him, looking nervous. My heart raced. "Your mother will always be special," Dad continued, "but I've decided to remarry." I froze. Then, with a shaky voice, I asked, "To who?" He looked at Sophia, and she looked down. That's when my world crashed. For a few seconds, no one said a word. I just stood there, staring at Dad, then at Sophia. The room felt smaller. The air was heavy and my chest burned. "Please tell me this is a joke," I said quietly. Dad sighed. "Daniel, I know it's hard to understand right now, but..." "Hard to understand?" I interrupted. "She's my best friend. You're my father. How could you both do this?" Sophia opened her mouth to speak, but I raised my hand. Don't say anything." I stormed out of the house and slammed the door behind me. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay on my bed, staring at the ceiling, remembering all the moments Sophia and I shared, laughing in school, celebrating birthdays, crying together at my mother's funeral, and now she was going to marry my dad. The next morning, I avoided both of them. I skipped breakfast and left the house early, but everywhere I went, people seemed to know. By the next week, the news had spread. My classmates whispered about it. Some laughed. "Daniel's dad is dating his best friend," one boy said behind my back. I clenched my fists but walked away. At home, Dad tried to talk to me again. "Son, I didn't plan for this to happen," he said softly. "Sophia and I just connected." "Connected?" I repeated bitterly. "She's my age, Dad. Do you realize how that looks?" He didn't answer. He just lowered his head. Sophia finally came over one evening to talk. She stood at my door holding a small paper bag with food, my favorite pancit canton. "I brought you dinner," she said quietly. I didn't respond. She placed the bag on the table and said, "I didn't mean for this to hurt you, Daniel. I tried to stay away, but your dad, he was lonely. I saw how broken he was. I wanted to help." "So you decided to marry him?" I snapped. Tears filled her eyes. "It wasn't supposed to happen like this." I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was unbelievable. "You were my best friend," I said. "The one person I trusted most. Now you're going to be my stepmother? Do you know how messed up that sounds?" She didn't say anything. She just wiped her tears and whispered, "I still care about you, Daniel. That hasn't changed." But everything had changed. A few weeks later, the wedding invitation came. White envelope, gold letters. Adrian and Sophia, a celebration of love. I threw it in the trash, but deep inside, I knew I couldn't avoid it forever. The day of the wedding, my aunt begged me to go. "You're his only son," she said. "You need to be there, even if it hurts." So I went. The church was full of flowers and smiles. Sophia looked beautiful in her white dress, but I couldn't look at her without feeling betrayed. My father stood proud beside her, beaming. When the priest said, You may now kiss the bride." I turned away, tears rolled down my face. At that moment, I felt like I had lost both my best friend and my father. After the wedding, everything felt wrong. The house that once felt like home now felt like a stranger's place. My father and Sophia, no, Mrs. Cruz, moved back in after their honeymoon. Every sound they made felt like an echo in my chest. Dad was happier than I had ever seen him. He smiled more, sang in the mornings, and even cooked breakfast sometimes. But for me, it was torture. Sophia tried to act normal, but I couldn't stand it. She would knock gently on my door saying, "Daniel, breakfast is ready," and I would pretend not to hear her. At the dining table, Dad would try to talk to both of us. "So, how's school, son?" he'd ask. "Fine," I'd reply shortly without looking up. Sophia would serve food and smile nervously, but I couldn't even look at her face. I hated how she looked so comfortable in my mother's kitchen, wearing an apron, touching things that weren't hers before. One night, I found her sitting in the living room alone, reading a book. She looked up when she saw me. "Daniel," she said softly, "can we please talk?" I wanted to walk away, but something in her voice stopped me. She continued, "I know you hate me right now. I understand, but I didn't marry your dad to hurt you. I just wanted to be there for him, for both of you." I looked at her, trying to find the girl I used to call my best friend, but all I saw was the woman who replaced my mother. "You can stop pretending," I said coldly. "You got what you wanted." She stood up, her voice trembling. "What I wanted was peace, Daniel, not this." She walked away quietly. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. I avoided being home. I joined a basketball team, stayed late after practice, sometimes slept over at friends' houses. But no matter how far I went, the pain followed me. Sometimes I would overhear my father and Sophia talking at night. "I don't know what else to do," she'd say. "He won't even look at me." And Dad would reply, "Give him time, honey. He's still healing." I wanted to scream, "I'm not healing. I'm breaking." Then one afternoon, something unexpected happened. I came home early and heard Sophia crying in her room. The door was slightly open and I could see her sitting on the floor hugging a pillow. She whispered to herself, "Maybe he'll never forgive me. Maybe I should have stayed away." For the first time, I saw her pain too. She wasn't the villain I had made her out to be. She looked lonely, lost. I quietly closed the door before she saw me. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about everything, our friendship, her kindness to my mom, her support after the funeral. Maybe she didn't plan for any of this. Maybe she really did love my dad. But forgiving her, that was something my heart wasn't ready for. It had been 4 months since the wedding, and the silence in our home had become heavier than words. Dad still tried to pretend everything was fine. Morning prayers, family dinners, weekend movie nights. But underneath it all, I could feel the cracks forming. Every smile was forced. Every good morning was fake. One Saturday, Dad had to travel to Cebu for business. That meant Sophia and I would be alone for 3 whole days. When he told us, I froze. Sophia looked nervous too, but she smiled weakly. "We'll be fine," she said. The first day was quiet. We barely spoke. She stayed in her room. I stayed in mine. By evening, the rain started pouring heavily. The lights flickered and thunder shook the house. Suddenly, the power went out. "Daniel?" Her voice called from the hallway. "I'm fine," I replied, trying not to sound nervous. She came closer with a small flashlight. "The circuit must have tripped. Can you help me check the fuse box?" I didn't want to, but I followed her. Together, we went outside to the small storage room where the main switch was. Lightning flashed across the sky. For a moment, we were both quiet, standing side by side, just like old times. When we got the lights back on, she smiled softly. "Thanks." I didn't smile back, but I didn't walk away either. Later that night, while I was in the kitchen drinking water, she walked in. "Can I ask you something?" she said quietly. I looked up. "What?" She hesitated. "Do you really hate me that much?" Her voice broke on the last word. I froze. I didn't know what to say. "I wake up every day trying to make peace," she continued. "I know you think I betrayed you. Maybe I did in a way. But I didn't choose love to hurt you, Daniel. I just wanted to find happiness again. I didn't expect it to come from your father." Tears filled her eyes and she whispered, "Do you ever think about how hard this is for me too?" Something inside me snapped. "Hard for you?" I shouted. You have no idea what it's like watching your best friend take your mother's place, watching her hold your dad's hand, cook in your mom's kitchen, sleep in her room. You destroyed everything." She covered her mouth, shaking. "I'm sorry," she said. "I really am." I slammed the glass on the counter. "Sorry doesn't fix anything." There was silence. Only the rain hitting the window. She whispered, "I wish you could see that I never stopped caring for you." I turned away. "Stop saying that. You're not my friend anymore. You're my stepmother." The morning after I read her letter, the house felt different. Quiet. Too quiet. For the first time in months, Sophia didn't knock on my door to wake me up. She didn't make breakfast either. The kitchen smelled empty. Dad had just returned from his trip. He smiled when he saw me in the living room. "Morning, son. Where's Sophia?" "I don't know," I said flatly. He looked surprised. "She always wakes up early." When she finally came downstairs, she looked tired, like she hadn't slept all night. Her hair was tied back, her eyes swollen. "Good morning," she said softly. Dad smiled at her. "Good morning, sweetheart." She smiled back weakly, but when her eyes met mine, she looked away quickly. That was the beginning of the silent distance. Sophia stopped talking to me completely. No more "how was school?" No more small smiles. She moved around the house like a ghost, quiet, polite, invisible. Dad didn't notice at first. He thought everything was fine. But after a few days, even he started to sense something. "Son," he said one night, "did something happen between you and Sophia while I was away?" I shrugged. "Nothing worth talking about." He sighed. "She's been so quiet lately. You two used to be so close. I just want my family to feel whole again." That word, family, hit me like a punch. It didn't feel like family anymore. It felt like a room full of strangers pretending to be okay. A week later, I came home from school earlier than usual. I heard soft music playing in the living room. It was an old song my mom used to love. Sophia was sitting on the couch staring at a photo album. She didn't notice me at first. I saw pictures of her and me as kids, in school uniforms, eating ice cream, laughing under the rain. When she looked up and saw me, she quickly closed the album. "Oh, you're home." I nodded. There was an awkward silence before she said, "Your mom gave me those pictures before she died. She said, 'Take care of him for me.'" I froze. "She trusted me," she continued softly. "That's why this hurts so much, because I broke the one thing she asked of me." She stood up and started to walk away, but I said, "Wait." She turned slowly. I swallowed hard. "You didn't break it." "I did." She looked surprised. "I pushed you away," I said quietly. "You tried to help, but I couldn't see past my anger. Maybe I just missed Mom too much." Her eyes softened. We both did. For the first time in months, we actually looked at each other without hate. The silence between us wasn't heavy anymore. It was sad but peaceful. Then she said something that stayed in my head for days. "Pain doesn't mean we stop loving, Daniel. Sometimes it just means we're learning how to love differently." That night, I found myself looking at old photos of my mom, and I realized something. Sophia didn't take her place. She was just trying to keep the family from falling apart. Maybe, just maybe, it was time to stop fighting. The morning after I read her letter, the house felt different. Quiet, too quiet. For the first time in months, Sophia didn't knock on my door to wake me up. She didn't make breakfast either. The kitchen smelled empty. Dad had just returned from his trip. He smiled when he saw me in the living room. "Morning, son. Where's Sophia?" "I don't know," I said flatly. He looked surprised. "She always wakes up early." When she finally came downstairs, she looked tired, like she hadn't slept all night. Her hair was tied back, her eyes swollen. "Good morning," she said softly. Dad smiled at her. "Good morning, sweetheart." She smiled back weakly, but when her eyes met mine, she looked away quickly. That was the beginning of the silent distance. Sophia stopped talking to me completely. No more "how was school?" No more small smiles. She moved around the house like a ghost, quiet, polite, invisible. Dad didn't notice at first. He thought everything was fine. But after a few days, even he started to sense something. "Son," he said one night, "did something happen between you and Sophia while I was away?" I shrugged. "Nothing worth talking about." He sighed. "She's been so quiet lately. You two used to be so close. I just want my family to feel whole again." That word, family, hit me like a punch. It didn't feel like family anymore. It felt like a room full of strangers pretending to be okay. A week later, I came home from school earlier than usual. I heard soft music playing in the living room. It was an old song my mom used to love. Sophia was sitting on the couch staring at a photo album. She didn't notice me at first. I saw pictures of her and me as kids, in school uniforms, eating ice cream, laughing under the rain. When she looked up and saw me, she quickly closed the album. "Oh, you're home." I nodded. There was an awkward silence before she said, "Your mom gave me those pictures before she died. She said, 'Take care of him for me.'" I froze. "She trusted me," she continued softly. "That's why this hurts so much, because I broke the one thing she asked of me." She stood up and started to walk away, but I said, "Wait." She turned slowly. I swallowed hard. "You didn't break it. I did." She looked surprised. "I pushed you away," I said quietly. "You tried to help, but I couldn't see past my anger. Maybe I just missed Mom too much." Her eyes softened. We both did. For the first time in months, we actually looked at each other without hate. The silence between us wasn't heavy anymore. It was sad but peaceful. Then she said something that stayed in my head for days. "Pain doesn't mean we stop loving, Daniel. Sometimes it just means we're learning how to love differently." That night, I found myself looking at old photos of my mom, and I realized something. Sophia didn't take her place. She was just trying to keep the family from falling apart. Maybe, just maybe, it was time to stop fighting. The next few days felt different. Not fixed, not happy, but calmer. But the shouting was gone. The air at home didn't feel as heavy anymore. Sophia and I still didn't talk much, but there was no more anger in her eyes, just peace, the kind that comes after a storm. One Saturday morning, Dad had to leave early again for a meeting. I came down to the kitchen and found Sophia making breakfast, eggs and fried rice, just like before. She looked up when she heard me. "Oh, good morning," she said softly. "Morning," I replied. I walked to the fridge to get water, and for the first time, I didn't walk out immediately. She looked surprised when I sat at the table. "You want some?" she asked gently. I nodded. "Yeah?" She smiled, just a small, careful smile, and served me a plate. We ate quietly. The only sound was the clinking of spoons and the soft hiss of the frying pan. Then I said, "The food tastes good." She looked up. "Thank you." It was a short exchange, but it felt like a bridge being built, slow, quiet, real. Later that day, I saw her struggling to carry a big basket of laundry to the washing machine. Without thinking, I stood up to help. "Here, let me take that," I said. She blinked, surprised again, but handed it over. "Thank you," she said softly. We worked side by side for a while, folding clothes, sorting colors, talking about random things. "How's school?" she asked. "It's fine," I said. Then I added, "Coach says I might be picked for the regional team." Her eyes brightened. "Really? That's amazing, Daniel. Your mom would have been so proud." The mention of my mom made me pause, but it didn't hurt as much as it used to. "Yeah," I said quietly. "I think so too." That night, Dad came home and noticed something. At dinner, he looked from me to Sophia and back again. "You two seem different," he said, smiling. "Did something happen while I was gone?" Sophia and I exchanged a glance. She shook her head slightly. "Nothing special." But I saw it in her eyes, a quiet relief, as if a heavy stone had been lifted from her heart. Days turned into weeks, and the distance between us slowly faded. Sometimes we'd watch TV together, still awkward but calm. Sometimes she'd leave snacks on my desk before I got home from school. And one night, she waited up for me after basketball practice just to make sure I got home safe. I didn't say anything, but I noticed. Then one evening, while I was studying, she knocked on my door. "Daniel," she said softly, "your dad's birthday is coming up next week. I was thinking maybe we could plan something together." I hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "Yeah, that sounds good." She smiled, not forced this time, not nervous, just warm. As she left the room, I realized something simple but powerful. Maybe forgiveness didn't need to be announced. Maybe it just needed to be lived, one small act at a time. Dad's birthday was only a week away. Sophia and I decided to plan a surprise dinner for him. It was the first time in months we were actually working together for something. We spent Saturday morning making a list, his favorite food, songs, and the friends to invite. I handled the decorations, she took care of the cooking. At first, it felt awkward again, but as the day went by, we started laughing at small things. The music not working, the cake frosting melting, the decorations falling off the wall. For the first time since the wedding, I heard Sophia laugh the way she used to when we were kids, and that laugh did something strange inside me. It was warm, familiar. It made my heart race in a way I didn't understand. That night, while she was testing recipes, she called out, "Danielle, taste this." I walked into the kitchen. She handed me a spoon of adobo sauce. "What do you think?" she asked. I tasted it and smiled. "Perfect, just like Mom's." She froze for a second, then smiled softly. "Thank you, that means a lot." For a moment, our eyes met, and something in me shifted. It wasn't anger anymore. It wasn't just friendship either. It was something else, confusing, heavy, and hard to explain. I turned away quickly. "I'll go hang the lights." But over the next few days, I caught myself watching her more often, the way she hummed while cooking, the way she smiled when she was proud of something. Every small thing reminded me of the comfort I'd missed for so long. I told myself it was just gratitude, but my heart didn't listen. One evening, while she was arranging the dining table, she looked up and said, "You've grown a lot, Daniel. Your mom would be so proud of you." "Thanks," I said quietly. Then she added, "And I'm proud too." Something about the way she said it made my chest tighten. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about her, how she cared, how she listened, but then guilt crept in. She was my stepmother, my father's wife, and my best friend before that. I hated myself for feeling something I shouldn't. The next morning, while we were decorating the living room, I almost dropped the banner. She rushed to help, and our hands touched. I pulled back immediately, my heart pounding. She looked at me curiously. "You okay?" Yeah, I said too quickly. She frowned slightly, then said, "Daniel, I know things are better between us now, but you've been acting quiet lately. Is something wrong?" I looked away. "No, nothing." But she didn't move. "You can talk to me. You always could." Her words made my throat tighten. I wanted to tell her everything, but I couldn't. She smiled gently and said, "Just remember, love can be confusing when you're still hurting. Sometimes what we feel isn't what we think it is. It's the heart looking for safety." I didn't understand what she meant then, but part of me knew she was right. When Dad's birthday finally came, everything went perfectly. He walked into the house, surprised and laughing as we shouted, "Happy birthday!" He hugged both of us tightly. "You two did all this?" Sophia smiled. "Daniel planned most of it." Dad looked proud. "That's my boy." And for the first time, the three of us ate together, not as broken pieces, but as a family trying to heal. As I watched them laugh, I realized something quietly painful yet freeing. Maybe what I felt wasn't love. Maybe it was just the part of me that missed feeling close to someone who cared. Sophia hadn't replaced my mom. She had simply reminded me that love, real love, doesn't always have to be romantic. The morning after Dad's birthday, the house felt calm. The music had stopped, the guests had gone, and the decorations still hung from the ceiling like fading memories of laughter. I sat outside on the porch watching the sunrise. Sophia came out quietly, holding 2 cups of tea. "Couldn't sleep?" she asked, sitting beside me. I shook my head. "Just thinking." Bijou smiled faintly. "You think too much?" We sat in silence for a while, just listening to the birds and the sound of the morning wind. Then I said softly, "Sophia, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Why did you marry Dad?" She didn't answer right away. She sipped her tea, her eyes far away. "Because he made me feel safe. After your mom passed, he was broken, and so was I. We found comfort in each other. Not perfect love, but peace." She turned to me gently. "And because I cared about you too. You were part of the reason I said yes." Her words hit me deeper than I expected. I nodded slowly. "I didn't make it easy for you." She chuckled quietly. "You made it honest. I knew it wouldn't be easy. But love never is, Daniel." Then she looked at me with warmth that felt like sunlight. "I see how much you've changed. You've grown, not just older, but wiser. And that's something your mother would have been proud of." I swallowed hard, fighting back tears. I didn't know what I was feeling before. I thought maybe." She interrupted softly. "You thought you loved me." My heart froze. She said it so calmly, without judgment. Then she added, "And that's okay." I looked at her, startled. "Daniel," she continued, "love is complicated when we're healing. Sometimes we confuse care for connection and safety for affection. What you felt wasn't wrong. It was your heart searching for home again." Tears filled my eyes. I just didn't want to disappoint anyone. And she smiled. You didn't. You just felt something deeply and you learned from it. That's what matters. At that moment, Dad came out, smiling at the two of us. You two are up early, he said, sitting between us. Sophia handed him a cup of tea. We were just talking. He looked at me and said, I don't say this enough, son, but thank you. You made last night special. I nodded, smiling faintly. I'm glad you were happy, Dad. He put an arm around both of us. You know, life doesn't always give us the family we expect, but sometimes it gives us the one we need. Looked at them, my father and my best friend, and realized he was right. Weeks passed, and the house began to feel more alive. We found a new rhythm, Sophia teaching me how to cook, Dad helping me fix the old bike, laughter slowly returning. One evening, I sat alone and wrote in my journal, love changes shape. Sometimes it breaks you, sometimes it heals you, but when it's true, it leaves you better than it found you. I smiled as I closed the book. Sophia wasn't just my stepmother. She was my reminder that love, even when it hurts, can still make us whole again. Months later, as I left for college, she hugged me tightly. Go and live fully, Daniel, she whispered. Don't be afraid to love again. Just remember what love really means. I nodded, holding back tears. As I got on the bus, I looked back, Dad waving, Sophia smiling beside him, the morning sun behind them. For the first time in years, I didn't feel broken. I felt free.